Issuance Committee, and the clerk tells me we have to be timely because as soon as this is done, some official documents have to be signed. So I'm getting a little reverb or feedback here. Everybody else, otherwise, I think it's just been solved. Very good. Okay. So with that, we will get started. I'm calling to order this meeting. Are there any declarations of direct or indirect pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Approval of the agenda. If I could have that moved. Councillor Fonseca, I acknowledge. And then I see Councillor Raz. Madam Clerk, just a show of hands is good enough. All those in favor? That is carried. I have no delegations report. Terms of debt issue, we have an oral presentation from Julie Patini, Director, Treasury Services. Julie.
Chair and members of the Debt Issuance Committee. Joined with us on the call today are Stephanie Nagel, the Regional Treasurer, John Zingaro, Patricia Kaza, and Patrick O'Connor, Counsel for the region, as well as Tarek El Ahmed and Scott Hodgson, Portfolio Managers. As we know, COVID-19 was declared a global pandemic in March. The Bank of Canada subsequently cut interest rates 3 times during the month of March, taking the policy interest rate to 0.25% from 1.75%. Government of Canada 30-year bond yields have fallen approximately 1% from average levels. Inflation expectations have fallen precipitously in recent months, largely attributed to the expected impacts of COVID-19. We're also seeing sharp declines in GDP and increases in unemployment. Geopolitical concerns such as trade negotiations continue to remain present in the background as well. We've seen central banks across the globe respond rapidly and with unprecedented scale in response to COVID-19, and the fiscal policy response has been equally as swift. On April 9th, the region received approval to issue debentures in the maximum principal amount of $200 million on behalf of the region, with a term not to exceed 31 years. The proceeds of the transaction will be used to fund development charge infrastructure projects. Stephanie Nagel, Treasurer for the region, and Stephen Van Offwegen, Commissioner of Finance and CFO, approved the syndicate allocations as follows. National Bank was the lead syndicate at 30% of the transaction. Bank of Montreal and RBC co-led the transaction with 20% allocation each. Toronto Dominion Bank at 15%, CIBC at 10%, and finally Scotiabank at 5%. On June 2nd, the region launched a $200 million 31-year sinking fund debenture. The timing of the transaction took advantage of attractive all-in rates and solid investor demand for the region's bonds. The region continues to engage with investors through investor conferences and one-on-one meetings, and this effort has proved to be valuable throughout this most recent transaction. In terms of a summary of the actual transaction, the initial spread guidance from the syndicate was in the context of mid-30s above where Ontario bonds trade, which was consistent with other recent deals throughout the municipal sector. The initial book build was slightly lower than market experience over the last couple of years. Spread guidance was subsequently revised to the area of 0.40%, which led to a quick pickup in investor demand. Final pricing for the deal landed at 0.39% over Ontario bonds, with solid overall investor demand. This spread was in line with expectations and prior transactions within the sector. The all-in yield was 2.572%, and that compares to the all-in yield of an April 2019 reopen at 3.15%. So as we can see, while the spread guidance and the actual spread we issued the transaction at was slightly above historical, all-in rates came in at our lowest ever for the region for a 30-year transaction. Pricing compared to recent transactions we saw in the market. So prior to the Region of Peel going out with their debenture, the City of Ottawa priced a 30-year debenture, and that was a green debenture at 43 basis points above Ontario. And then City of Winnipeg also priced with a comparative spread above Ontario of 48 basis points. All in all, it was a successful transaction with strong investor demand. We continued to meet with investors both one-on-one as well as in conference settings, and that has really led to the successful nature of our transaction. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you for that. Are there any questions at this time? I'm looking for a hand, and I don't see any. So with that, Madam Clerk, does that take me to the bylaw? Bylaw 6.1, to authorize the borrowing upon sinking fund debenture in the principal amount of $200 million for capital works of the regional municipality of Peel. If Councillor Fonseca would move that. It's duly noted. All those in favor? Is there anyone opposed? That is carried. Is there any other business? One that comes to mind, some of you may have seen it in the morning papers as well. It was interesting to note that all the underwriters are the usual syndicate of banks, and one of our elected officials has got a problem because they have a mortgage with one of the banks. I don't know if I have a conflict. One of the ones you named holds my mortgage, and I bet they hold a lot of ours. So I just thought that was amusing that pretty soon only rich people can be elected to public office because we have mortgages with banks. But maybe a discussion for another day. All right, I have a confirming bylaw, and that bylaw too will be moved by Councillor Fonseca. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Motion to adjourn from Councillor Fonseca again, carried, and we'll see you in a few minutes. Thank you all.